us a great opportunity to actually show what we do, what happens to your prescriptions when you send them off, and hopefully we can answer lots of questions that you may have. If you've got any questions throughout the session, please put them in the chat, or we have a question and answer session at the end where you will get to speak to us live and ask those questions. I'm going to pass you over to the first part of the presentation to my colleague, Phil Edwards, and he's going to speak for a bit before then I take back over and then we'll do the Q&A together. So over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Mark, and good evening, everybody. Great to join you here on our webinar tonight. My name is Phil Edwards. I am Head of Pharmaceutical Services and the Principal Pharmacist here at the NHSBSA. I'll formally introduce Mark. Mark Gibbon is our Business Engagement Lead. Some of you may well know him. He does these presentations up and down the country and also takes contractors through various webinars with a similar theme to help you understand how to submit and process your prescriptions. Now, at the end of this presentation, we will have a Q&A session, but if there are any of the questions outstanding that you need answering, please visit our website. We'll share the link later and you can have a bespoke webinar service with Mark. So I'm going to talk about initially about overview of NHS Prescription Services and the NHSBSA and the type of work we do. So you may not know, but NHS Prescription Services was born in 2008. Having said that, some of you who may remember years before that and have been around a while, remember that we were formerly known as the Prescription Pricing Authority. And that was the core of what we did, prescription processing. We now only have 3 offices around the UK. We did have many more when the type of work that we did, which was basically paper FP10 processing, was a lot higher and the volumes were greater than they are now. But we have 3 regional offices, one in Wakefield, one in Parklands, Bolton, and the other ones, because there's 3 of them in Newcastle. Now, Newcastle is regarded as the head office of the NHSBSA, and it's probably the prime site. It's actually even more important now because the new Chief Executive Officer of the NHS, Sir Jim Mackey, and his team are now based out of there. So, NHS Prescription Services, as I say, was formed in 2008, and we are part of what's known as the NHS Business Service Authority. Now, the NHS Business Service Authority is an arm's length body, an ALB, and that means we are a directive function of the Department of Health and Social Care. So we undertake essential and critical services on behalf of the department. And we also undertake commission work directly from NHS England. So the NHSBSA has morphed into a really big organisation now. We undertake the administration of the NHS pension, we manage NHS workforce, we undertake the administration of the England Effective Blood Scheme, we make payments to dentists and optometrists, and many of you may have in your wallet the plastic card, the Global Health Insurance card. We administer all that. But fundamentally, and at the core of what we do as an organisation, is prescriptions. And the NHS Prescriptions Service area is where we process them. And now I like to think of this area very much as the heart of the BSA. It in essence is the DNA. It's a massive part of our organisation, and even though it's been around a while, it still is the most important part in my view. Now, before we get into talk about processing our prescriptions, and I say Mark will go take you through what's a very informative, very interesting, I'm sure a helpful presentation that will support you in your submissions and what to do to accurately submit and get paid accurately and on time. Before we do that, I just want to talk about 2 key foundation blocks of processing that my team is responsible for. The first one is DM&D. So DM&D is the Dictionary of Medicines and Devices. Now, this is the primary care database, and I've said this on many occasions, it's probably the most important database that the NHSBSA look after. It's important because without it, prescribers aren't able to prescribe, dispensers such as yourself can't dispense, and we wouldn't be able to receive EPS messages which we can process and then make payment. Now, the Dictionary of Medicine Devices is updated every single day by medicines data analysts who work for the BSA. So what they're updating new drugs that come to market, any pack changes, any strength changes, any discontinued items, anything related to the endorsement required in the drug tariff, such as broken bulk and out-of-pocket expenses. And I guess most importantly on the database is the price of that particular drug. So as I say, that's updated every day by our teams. And then we send out a file to all the prescribing systems and your dispensing systems so that your database, your drugs file is up to date as best it possibly can be. So I said that's obviously very, very important from a prescribing dispensing point of view. But in terms of the rules that are governed, the reimbursement and remuneration, not surprisingly, I'm going to mention the drug tariff. So the drug tariff is a monthly publication. And as I said, that contains all the rules associated with the payments that we make to you and the fees that are associated with those payments. We could spend a whole session talking about the drug tariff. I've got no intention of doing that, other than to say it's a monthly publication. We've got a picture there that shows it in its paper format. We no longer send out a paper format of the drug tariff because it's so big and so wieldy, but it is available usually 2 or 3 days before the end of the month, and it's available online in an electronic form and also as a PDF form as well. So it's always available before the end of the month. As I said, it contains all the rules, all the regulations, all the fees associated with reimbursement and payments associated with submitting prescriptions. It contains 2 main areas, 2 main parts. One called Part 8, and I'm not sure why it was ever called Part 8. But Part 8 relates to the prices associated with the payments for drugs. There's another part to the drug tariff called Part 9, and Part 9 relates to medical devices and appliances. Now, while Part 8 details the prices of medicines and drugs, it's not a definitive list. Drugs can be prescribed outside Part 8, which we will pay for, and we'll either find a price on the database or we'll come and ask you, tell me what the invoice price is for your particular drug. However, Part 9 for medical devices and appliances, that is a definitive list. So just a key point here, if the preparation or the medical device and appliance isn't in Part 9, it will not be paid for and will be disallowed. And it's my team in the BSA who undertake the assessment of those products and ensure what should be listed in the drug tariff and Part 9 it should be. And I say there's a separate process for what's allowed and what's not allowed in there. Before I move on to talk about the volumes that we deal with, just one caveat here. Now, I said NHSBSA is an arm's length body and we're directed function. Just to be clear, we do not determine policy, we do not determine regulation, and we do not determine what the funding arrangements are for community pharmacy or indeed the dispensing contractors as a whole. So we're not responsible for reimbursement or the fees that exist within the drug tariff. That all is determined by the Department of Health. Okay, moving on to processing volumes. So you may be surprised or not surprised to learn that we process over 1.2 billion prescription items every single year. And we receive those prescription items from numerous contractors. Pharmacy contractors are by far the largest, but we do receive substantial amounts from dispensing doctors, from GPs for personally administered items, dispensing appliance contractors, and we pay oxygen contractors as well. So 1.2 billion items is the total volume we deal with. And from that, we pay out or pay taxpayers' money over £12 billion of reimbursement costs for the drugs that are dispensed by you in primary care. That's £12 billion worth of taxpayers' cost. So we do that, and on average, you can quickly do the calculations, we process about 100 million items a month. The majority of those items are actually EPS items, electronic prescription service items. However, we do still process about 5 or 6 million paper forms, paper FP10s, the majority of which come from dispensing doctors. A lot of dispensing doctors haven't yet moved to EPS. So if we talk about EPS, and EPS has completely transformed our business. As I said from the start, we've got 3 processing sites. We had 13, 14, and even more back in the 1980s and 90s, simply because the volume was all paper. But now EPS volumes have made life a lot easier, a lot quicker, a lot safer, and a lot more accurate. So on average, we're processing about 90 plus million EPS items every single month. and they come from 45 million or so EPS messages that we receive from you when you submit them to the BSA. I mentioned we've had a significant decrease in paper items. In fact, one of the big changes was COVID. Before COVID, we received about 15 million paper forms, about 30 million items. Now we're receiving just over 5 million forms. COVID was a game changer in terms of the change of prescribing, dispensing habits in primary care. More items than ever are now being processed through EPS. We now stand at about 91% of our total volume is EPS. Before COVID, it was about 72%. And when I started at the NHSBSA about 9 years ago, it barely hit 35%. So we've seen a massive change in the volumes of EPS items coming through to us. Now I want to share this slide. This gives you an idea of the volumes that we process on a normal monthly basis. But actually, July 2025 wasn't a normal month. It's actually the highest volumes the NHSBSA, the PPA, or any incarnation of a processing service has ever seen. We processed 500,000 items in the month of July. We also processed them from 102 million EPS items. That's the first time ever we've actually exceeded 100 million EPS items flowing through to us. We still received about 9.5 million paper items, and we still receive about 5 million paper prescription forms. So we process all that information, all those items from 11,500 accounts, and we do that each month. And we have to do it within a 28, 30, 31-day period, cut it off, and then we start the whole process once again after making the payments. So just to show you the massive change in our organization and what EPS has meant for us, the little red line there, you might not be able to see this on your screen, shows the time COVID hit the UK. So that's around March 2020. And since then, you can see there's an immediate rise from the use of EPS, but now we've seen a slow and steady increase. And as I said, the major contract that we haven't seen growth from is dispensing doctors, but we believe that may change somewhat in the near future. So I'm going to pass along to Mark now. I've told you about the volumes. I told you about what we do. Mark's going to go into a bit more detail about how we process your monthly submissions, but I say more importantly, to give you some hints and tips how to ensure accurate submission so we can make payments to you accurately and on a timely basis. Thanks for your time. Well, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Phil. Good evening, everybody. What we're going to do is go through, as Phil says, a little bit of history, how we process your prescriptions, and some hints and tips on the things that we see on a daily basis. The NPA did actually ask you for some questions prior to tonight, and hopefully if you did submit one of them, thank you very much for doing that. Hopefully I'm going to answer them as we go, but if we don't, we have got this session at the end where we will go back through them questions and again give you an opportunity to ask any questions. Phil's talked about where we are and what the future holds, but I'm going to take you back in my time machine back to 2007 and what image one looks like of what my desk used to look like. No clever database of drugs, just a flip chart that had all the drugs listed on, and we'd work through the piles and piles of prescriptions manually, matching the codes against the drug and inputting them on the grey buttons. But in 2007, we recognized paper needed to change and EPS was on its way. So we developed a new system called SIP that uses scanning technology that incorporates ICR software, intelligent character recognition. It can basically read prescriptions as long as they are computer generated, like in image 2. Unfortunately, it's only intelligent. It is not a genius. It cannot read handwritten prescriptions. They all get presented to staff members automatically. But if it is computer generated, the ICR will attempt to read it and match it to the database. And if it matches it with 100% certainty, it will star those items out like you can see in the image 2, meaning they do not need to see any human interaction. Image 3 is what an EPS message looks like when it is presented to a staff member, but less than 1% of EPS messages get presented to staff. They only come out normally for validation if it is an unusual quantity or an expensive item. You might say 1% of 100 million is still a million items, but they are just more for validation rather than inputting, which is why Phil mentioned earlier how and why we like EPS, due to its efficiency and its accuracy and its security. We ask you to submit your account to us. We get 11,500 cardboard boxes. So we often pass on information to make sure you submit these in good condition. You used to put a submission document in, but from April 2022, it became compulsory for you to submit your figures via MYS, which is much better. It feeds in via an API to our payments team, who will then sanction any advance payment from your declaration. We would have liked to have got rid of the piece of paper in the box to make us absolutely paper free in this process. But unfortunately, when you get 11,000 cardboard boxes, you do still need to know who has sent them in. So we created an account identifier, which is still unique to your pharmacy with your details on. And most importantly, a unique barcode that once we scan it, we attribute everything else in that box to your account. What we ask is you send it in good condition. Please don't throw the prescriptions in the box. However, when we rang this contractor, he said there's no way it came in like that. And we did actually find lots of snapped elastic bands in the box. Problem is, we are just going to bundle that back together and we won't separate the exempt and chargeable prescriptions, which again may lead to a wrong group movement. Image 2, well, the one in the bag, it's the worst thing I've seen in 29 years of working here. And we do still get plastic bags every week, normally wrapped in tape, as that makes it somehow better. But please stay away from plastic bags because that is worth tens of thousands of pounds to your account. But also, it is not safe and secure. If that was to tear, you'd be in big trouble. And again, you can see all the patient details through it. So again, due to identity fraud, that would not be very good. So please stay away from plastic bags. Pharmacy accounts have changed over the years. They used to be all green prescriptions, but when we open the pharmacy boxes now, this is what it tends to look like. As much as we've just said we've gone electronic, it does seem counterproductive that we still ask you to produce a token for anybody who is not age exempt. People don't really understand why we ask them to send the tokens in, but I'm going to make this clear hopefully on this screen today, and we can all do a bit to actually improve what we do send in. What we are doing, we are scanning those tokens not for drug information. We have already received that via an electronic message. We are going to be checking the patient's eligibility from that token to check for patient fraud. So anybody under 16 or over 60, you do not need to send the tokens in because we know from the database that those age groups are entitled to free prescriptions. If that item or prescription also contains a free of charge item, you don't need to send it in because, again, that item will always be free of charge. And if you check a patient's eligibility in pharmacy against RTEC, and RTEC says, yes, this patient does have a valid medical exemption, you do not need to send that token in either because all we are going to do is check the same databases that RTEC is linked up to, and that would just duplicate the work. You can send in your Schedule 2 and 3 CD tokens. We can keep a record of them, and you should be separating your pharmacy first tokens, which good news from the team who received these batches have informed us that everybody seems to be doing that. At the moment, we know from the ones that don't match RTEC and from the people who are non-age exempt, we should have received 8 million tokens last month. But unfortunately, we actually received 11.2, meaning over 3 million tokens were incorrectly submitted. The cost of preparing, scanning, and then storing those tokens cost NHSBSA £16,000 a month, not including the cost of the paper. So there is a significant waste of time and effort and money to the NHS. So all we ask is that if you are sending in all the tokens because you don't want to sort them, there is an impact. And if you are not sending tokens in, then if you don't send the tokens in, how can we check for fraud? And significantly over 10 to 12 million pounds a year is reclaimed in fraudulent prescription charges. So please, if you are not sending them in, get them in. And if you're sending everything in, please just understand so we can actually make everybody more efficient. The batch from pharmacy looks very different now. Very little paper at the top there. And I will cover the numbers a little bit later. But yeah, all tokens. In an ideal world, we would like to be able to accept a digital signature, which would eradicate that token. But until Department of Health inform us that we can do that, we have to carry on sending the tokens in as we are. I've just said there, what is left? Well, 1.1 million green FP10s came in last month, 300,000 dental, 300,000 hospitals, and 250,000 blue installments. I mention this because as paper is at its absolute minimal now, people are starting to make mistakes on what used to be the bread and butter, the green prescriptions. So I will give you some hints and tips, but the biggest tip immediately is if you've got a dental, a hospital, or a blue installment, make sure it is prescribed and endorsed correctly. And as I say, it's often basic information that is missing on those prescriptions. When we set up the scanners in 2007, pharmacists were dubious. So they suddenly said, what, you've got technology that's going to read our prescriptions. So we created what we call a tagged group. It is a red A4 piece of paper called a red separator, and it has this criteria stamped on it. If you are unsure what to put in your tagged group, it is only for paper. So your EPS tokens do not need to go in there. And if you are unsure, just read through it. It's normally the expensive things or the most interesting things. Wrap the prescriptions, the paper prescriptions that hit this criteria. And what it means is when we scan it, it will be filtered off and guaranteed to see human eyes. It won't just go through the system. It guarantees human interaction. What this scanner will do is run it has potential to run at 30,000 forms an hour, but occasionally staples, pins, and paper clips are left in the batches, which we ask you to remove. Sometimes they're folded and sometimes they have sticky labels on. Please do not put sticky labels in the main body of the prescription, because once it's been scanned, we cannot just reach into our screens. Once the staff remove the pins, paper clips, and staples and stickers, it normally runs at about 16,000 forms an hour, because it does occasionally jam if a corner is torn or a prescription is folded. What this scanner will do is take a digital image of the front and back of the prescription and then attempt to read it. It reads inside the red boxes, and if it can read it, it will not be presented to a user. If it is unsure and not 100% certain, it will then present that prescription to a user. I'm going to set the scanner away now. You'll see that it's actually scanning EPS tokens, and we actually scan over 2.5 times more tokens than we do prescriptions now. Hopefully you can appreciate how fast that is actually going, because not only is it taking a digital image of the front and back of the prescription, it also prints a number on it in case we ever need to retrieve it from the warehouse. And once it's finished scanning them, it nicely bundles them up, where we then store them at the warehouse, where we keep a paper version for 6 months, but then we keep a digital image for 2 years. That is the batch preparation and the scanning sorted. We now move on to processing the prescriptions. And as Phil mentioned earlier, we are following the rules and regulations set out in the drug tariff. And there's a screenshot of the online version rather than the old school paper version. Use it online. If you are unsure, it has a search facility in it, which will help direct you to the correct section. We filter the work down through 100 million items taken care of by 90 million EPS. The ICR will then process what it can, and basically whatever it can't process is then presented to a staff member on their screen at home. Majority of our staff now work from home since COVID, but then what we will do is do the header processing, which is the prescriber information and the backs of the prescriptions, checking for exemptions. Then type 1 staff do the first level of drugs that the ICR couldn't process, and then type 2 do what is left. Right, if anybody has heard of the term wrong group movement or switched item, this isn't for paper only. We do take the declaration in EPS messages, but for the backs of the paper prescriptions, you are expected to get the patient to tick the relevant exemption category and then, most importantly, sign for that prescription, which makes it a legal declaration that they are exempt. So what the staff will do, the ICR will do, it will scan the prescriptions and it will check whether you have bundled them up as exempt or chargeable. So the contractor status for this one has been submitted as E for exempt, but the ICR has read the information on the back and actually disagrees with your declaration. It thinks it should be C for chargeable. And the reason for that is, yes, there's a box ticked, but without a signature, it does not classify as an exempt prescription. So if it doesn't classify as exempt, it will be switched to chargeable. Now it's chargeable. You should have taken a £9.90 payment from the patient. I'm guessing you probably didn't. You just forgot to get it signed. However, our staff will then confirm the change by typing in yes, and that will now be classified as a chargeable payment, and £9.90 per item will be deducted from you at the end of the month. And again, you can check this out on your statement under the deduction section. We see the patient is 43 years of age. If they were under 16 or over 60 on a computer-generated patient details, the computer wouldn't even have kicked it out. It's that clever. It can read the patient's ages as well. We see lots of blank ones, no boxes ticked, but most importantly, no signature either. So please get somebody to flick through the paper ones at the end of the month. I think people have started to get a little bit slack on these because you do so little paper. You're still just thinking, oh, we'll submit them. You can still lose money on these. One is £9.90. If you had 10 of these, it's significant money. So please be careful at the end of the month. We don't want you to lose finance on these. If you are flicking through at the end of the month and you spot any that are unsigned, that should be signed, you can check your PMR record. And if you have that patient's details there, you can tick on behalf of patient and you can put your squiggle and signature in that box and sign on behalf as the representative. And if a patient refuses to show you, if they may or may be fraudulently claiming, you should not be penalized for that. So you can tick the evidence not seen box and again sign in that box, meaning that item will not be switched. Don't worry if somebody you think is fraudulently claiming. At this stage, this is about you as a pharmacy, as a business, not losing money and getting your exempt or chargeable prescriptions submitted correctly. We have a separate stream of work called PECS, which is Prescription Exemption Checking Service, where we will hopefully catch that person, where we match the patient details against the databases and may end up sending out a penalty charge notice. You can tick as many boxes as you like, but without a legal signature, a wet signature in that box, again, it will still be switched. The ICR is very generous in image 1. It is only looking for a mark or an indication, a squiggle. Again, anything that's there will not be switched. And if staff notice the signature is outside of the box, like in image 2, they will use common sense and not switch it. Please be careful on handwritten patient details, like in image 3. Even though Mr. P. Bear is 63 years of age, even if he was under 16, we would still need a wet signature for handwritten patient details because anybody could write their details on a pad of prescriptions. And I have seen a few of these slipping through, especially on dental forms. So if you get a dental form with patient details, please get it signed on the back, or again, it may possibly be switched. Why does it matter? Well, depend on how many items are on that prescription when we go to the next stream of work. Depends how much you lose at the end of the month. Ramipril, image 1, we pay you the 86 pence, but by the time we deduct £9.90, you are £9.04 out of pocket, all because there isn't a signature. And Disaster on image 2, if there is multiple items. Those 4 products came to £12.58, meaning you're £27 out of pocket, all because you didn't get it signed. If I haven't made it any clearer, there you go. Get it signed. Simple as that. Any switched signed items will not be switched. And the majority are switched because there isn't a signature. So yeah, there's no excuses for that one. And please just make sure you do it because we don't want to see you encountering losses at the end of the month. We then move on to inputting prescriber details. All prescribers should have their own unique code and it should match our database. Our staff will input their number into the prescriber ID box, which will then flash up a name and an address. Hopefully it matches, and then we can attribute the cost to that cost centre and that prescriber. NHS England and Department of Health like to know who is prescribing what. Once we've done the prescriber details, we then move on to processing drugs. Type 1 staff are the first people to input the drugs after the ICR has read it. So we input an alphanumeric string or a memory code. So an alphanumeric string is the first 3 letters of the drug followed by a strength, followed by a pharmaceutical form, C for capsules, T for tablets, and then a quantity of 15. However, the top 204 products have a memory code assigned to them, and amoxicillin is memory code V. So they put in a memory code of V with a quantity of 15, and that is them done. They know all of the memory codes and can do 880 items an hour. So they have the fastest fingers in the West. And arguably, if I could show you them processing tonight, I think you'd probably think they were more impressive than our scanners. What they do, they filter off the next level of work, which basically leaves what is left for the type 2 processors. These guys only do 260 to 300 items an hour, but they are analysing the full prescription and are the pharmacist's best friend because they have the checkbook at their fingertips and are giving you any fees which you may be entitled to. They are analysing pack sizes. So if no endorsement is needed unless there is more than 1 pack size listed, and we've got 3 quick examples to show you because some people still endorse every item on paper. Example number 1, paracetamol 500 milligram tabs, 100 ordered. comes in 2 pack sizes, but if it is unendorsed, quantities will be matched to the closest available pack. So if you always give 100 from 100, you don't need to endorse image 1. But if you've given it from the 32 pack, because there is 2 packs available, then you need to tell us because there is a slight price difference. Where I can save you some time tonight for things like example number 3, metronidazole, there is only 1 pack available, yet we still continue to see handwritten prescriptions saying something like 100/21. Well, again, there is only 1 pack. Unless you've given something less than 100, you don't need to endorse that at all. You could leave that blank and we would still give you 100 from the 21 pack. Things we do need you to endorse, anything that is a non-part drug tariff Part 8 product, which basically means the product exists, but there isn't an agreed price for it in the tariff. So something like Solgar Vitamin D3, tell us supplier, price, and pack size. Miss off any of that information and we will refer it back to you. But this one is nicely endorsed Avicenna Special, £7.05 for the 100 pack. Our staff will get their calculator out, divide it down, and then they have the checkbook at their fingertips and they will literally type in invoice price £6.35, which again gets attributed back to you. As I say, if in doubt, put supplier, price, and pack size on, and we won't need to return any of these items. If you are supplying a drug tariff special order, a Part 8B, these are listed in the tariff with an agreed price, where you can see what you get for the standard pack and then the additional 1 mil pack. But please be aware you can claim a special order fee for these. Whether it is on paper or EPS, you should normally have a little drop-down box that allows you to claim an SP fee. This not only gets you the cost of the drugs, but the SP fee gets you an additional £20 payment, but only SP will be accepted. Your computer systems will normally put this on for you or even suggest it, but if it's on paper, make sure you write SP in the endorsement column. If you don't put the SP on, you don't get it. You can also claim the SP on non-Part 8 specials and imports. However, we also need to know supplier, price and pack, manufacturer's license number and a batch number, and again, get your SP on there. It's on image 1, you get the £20 plus the cost of the drugs. Unfortunately for image 2, you just get the cost of the drugs and you will miss out on the additional special order fee. Once we've done all the inputting, our type 2 staff then check again. We have a tagged stream, which I told you about earlier, that guarantees it is a full form check. We will recheck all items on the prescription and also recheck the prescriber number to ensure that it is fully checked. Type 2 staff also process FP10 MDA forms, and all I ask is that you fill in all the boxes as clear as possible. Because the pharmacist's initials are omitted from this prescription, does that mean you didn't dispense it or the patient didn't turn up? So what our staff will then do is look at the left-hand endorsement column, and we can see that it's endorsed 28 of the 2 mil and 14 of the 8 milligram. So we will give you the benefit of the doubt that you did dispense the full quantity. So if in doubt, please endorse it, especially if they are unclear. One thing for methadone liquid, you are entitled to claim a package dose fee, which the drug tariff claims you can claim an extra 55p, depending on how it has been prescribed. So if you need to take the liquid away for closed days on Saturdays and Sundays and maybe bank holidays, or if the prescriber indicates that they want it in daily dose bottles, you are entitled to claim a maximum number of package dose fees for liquid. But please do not try and claim it on tablets. The drug tariff states only liquid you can claim that on, because you can take tablets away in your hand. Liquid will dribble through your fingers, unfortunately. If you have a patient who was not attended, please put a nice clear line through the installment side with a nice big ND. And if you want to, you can amend the quantity. If the prescription is starting to get a little bit messy and unclear, you can put the new quantity in the left-hand endorsement column. Type 2 staff will also process any SSP items. If you are unsure of what is currently in shortage supply, you can check our website on the NHSBSA, or CPE have really good instructions as well. You need to put in what the relevant SSP number is and also the relevant correct alternative. So if in doubt, check the websites. In an ideal world, we would have been able to process all 111 million items, but unfortunately, over 112,000 items had to go back in MYS last month. And there is the top 10, if anybody wants to take a quick screenshot of it. Hypermellows is still number 1 by a country mile. But as I say, most of the other drugs are really simple, that if they had been endorsed correctly, they would not need to be returned. In an ideal world, people would have sent in the correct information first time round, but last month over 5,000 items had to be sent back again in NYS. And then there were certain ones that needed to make phone calls for because they were still unclear and we couldn't work out what needed to be processed. We had to make over 400 calls, which spent 34 hours of ringing people. So if everybody can just take note of what needs to be endorsed, that would be very much appreciated. And again, we can help both yourself and us work more efficiently. From June 22, it became compulsory to submit these items in MYS. And again, Hypermellows has been such a pain in our backsides, it's got its own slide. So if you give any of the appliances in Part 9 of Aculos, Lumicare, Ocufresh or Pure Optics, just endorse it with the brand or the appliance type. If you've bought it in from somewhere, any of the ones in the green box there, tell us supplier, price and pack. Otherwise, again, it will be returned back to you. Common mistakes, ordered by directions. So please be careful like that one on image 1. You can tell us what you've given in the endorsement column. Image 2 is my pet hate. It's the most simple one out there. Pharmaceutical form omitted from the order. Is it a capsule, a tablet, a solution or a suspension? Just endorsing this one 3 times 28 doesn't clarify it because the cap and the tab are available as a 28. And be careful on dental prescriptions. Only tablets is not allowed in the dental formulary. Only capsules is allowed on a dental prescription. If you endorse that tablets, it will be disallowed once we've returned it to you once. I put this one in because I spoke to somebody the other day who did some really good endorsing. So image 1, dexamethasone is one of the more common ones, and image 2 for prednisolone, 30 milligram. Both are nicely endorsed with a breakdown of what was given of the 2 milligrams and the 5 milligrams, and then a clear quantity. And then image 3 is nicely endorsed, penicillin 250 milligram. They've nicely broken down that they have doubled up the quantity. So again, just if in doubt, handwritten prescriptions are the main ones where these are incorrectly ordered, normally by directions, normally missing quantities, and normally missing a pharmaceutical form. Just endorse it and we won't need to send any of them back. 2 most common mistakes in appliances, hypodermic insulin needles ordered and povidone dressings. Again, tell us types or brands and names of dressings. We send a few thousand of these back every month, not just on paper. They do go back in EPS as well. Common mistakes in EPS. Well, I've never seen anybody who wanted 40,000 salbutamol inhalers. Again, it's just a miscalculation. You can correct that. Be careful if you are endorsing supplier, price and pack on EPS messages as well. This one's £1,010 and 26 pence for the 17.5 gram pack. By the time you multiply that out, it would have been £28,000. You will get a phone call for that. And hypodermic needles in EPS as well, just with the same information in the dispensed info. We need to know a type or brand. In MYS, we give you the boxes only for the information we need. However, you can put free text in if you want. So this one would have been an RB1A, supplier, price and pack. Please fill in all the boxes and resubmit it. This is the most common one people get wrong at EPS. They miscount the number of items going down. Double check in the left-hand corner, item 6, because if you endorse item 5 or item 7, we still cannot process it. And we can add a note. So basically read the note, please, because we will spoon feed you that information. 116,000 items last month, of which RB1A, supplier, price and pack for 1C, and pharmaceutical form made up 83% of the referred backs. If we can all improve on that, we can certainly all work a little bit more efficiently. And one last statistic in MYS, there were 54,000 items that have not been touched for 6 months. These now get deleted after 18 months. So if you've got any outstanding in your account, please get them submitted. We don't want you to lose that revenue. Once they filter through to the last stream of work, we give them a final check. Anything with a £100 value, anything with an invoice price input, and anything referred back, we will double check before sending that information to our payments team, who tear off the receipt and pay out the longest list of drugs you have ever seen. But that is how we process 111 million items in about 40 minutes. I mentioned before, we asked you guys to submit some questions, and there was 14 submitted to us, which I'm going to go through, and we'll whiz through a few of them before we then ask for any more questions. Number 1 was, how do pharmacies send off late submissions for private CDs and requisitions? You should have a private CD account, and we ask that you don't just put normal private CD products in your standard NHS account. You can send them off. Really, you should stay month on month, because if you don't send a current month in, it means we have to abate them until we get a current month. So you can send them off late. It's not ideal. We ask that you stay month on month. And as I say, you should have a private CD account rather than just putting them in your standard pharmacy account. Number two, if a DM&D item listed in special section of the drug tariff is shown as special order, would the prescription still need to state special order? If it's a DTSO and that's the only thing listed, our staff will match it to that. However, if your system does print special order in the first line, that is completely fine as well. But as long as it is listed in the section, it will be matched to that product. For handwritten or EPS prescriptions for drug tariff listed under unlicensed products, does the prescription need to be written as drug name DTSO or drug name Part 8D, drug name for correct reimbursement? Again, if it's only listed as a DTSO, you don't have to state DTSO in the top line. We would know that that product is a DTSO and listed as so. So completely fine with that one. For BB/out-of-pocket OOP, what does readily medicinal products refer to? Phil, I don't know if you've got a better definition for this, but we would just say anything that is readily available in the supply chain or
Absolutely.
Part 8 products.
Yes, or Part 8 products and readily available in the supply chain. Yeah.
And again, if you are unsure what you can claim that on, I think it's Part 2, Clause 12 of the drug tariff. You can go back and recheck. Because there is a few definitions of what you can claim out of pockets on. You can't claim it on all generics, or else the NHS would be bankrupt.
Yep.
For FP10MDA, what endorsements are needed? Well, I think I covered that with the examples. Just make it as clear as you can if the right-hand side is unclear, and make any amendments. Handwritten prescription, if the form does not exist, can the pharmacist endorse with what is supplied? Well, again, hopefully I kind of covered that in the endorsement. Yes, you can. If there's no pharmaceutical form stated in the original order, tell us what you've given and we will go off your endorsed information. For eye drops, where prescriber has ordered the quantity based on directions dosed, do you reimburse on endorsement only? So yes, we would take an indication of endorsement if there isn't one in the prescribed information. Normally, a lot of them come in special containers, so they would tend to be 1 times 10 ml, which would be 1. But yes, we will look to your endorsement for an indication of what was dispensed. For a prescription written for a certain quantity, when can a pharmacy endorse the pack size supplied instead of getting the prescription amended to the pack size supplied? Again, I think I covered that before. You can endorse which pack size you used. Again, if there are multiple packs, or if it's only 1 pack, you don't need to endorse it at all. Do handwritten prescriptions need to be in a specific color? Would rank it be acceptable? We always say blue or black is better. However, if one does come through as red, we probably can read it. The technology is good, but the more faint it is, does increase the chances that we may not be able to read it once it's been scanned. So I would tend to stay away from red if you can, please. 10, NHS prescription for a patient that lives abroad. You actually got me on this one. I didn't know the answer straight off the top of my head. So our website got checked and it was like, if you are moving abroad on a permanent basis. So again, I know some people have dual residency or still own properties in this company. It's only you cannot claim it if you are on a permanent basis abroad. And again, that is on our website if you would like to read it in further detail. Number 11, are there options to be completely paper-free when sending off the end of the month, or are still EPS to send off? I think I did actually mention that earlier on. Until Department of Health instructs us otherwise, we do still have to send the tokens in. Phil, feel free to jump in at any point if I'm getting any of these wrong. I think you look comfortable there.
Yeah, the tokens issue is an issue. I think maybe there's a question in the chat about will there be at some point a removal of paper tokens? And the ambition is to completely remove paper tokens at some point. Having said that, at the moment, the patient charging regulations still require a signature if a patient pays a charge, but that may well change. Or if the RTEC system, and I know it doesn't cover all exemptions, if our RTEC system fails, that is a contractual requirement to send in a signed token. Having said that, there are plans to try and get a digital signature introduced that can be used by pharmacies. We can get a digital signature in the EPS message that would hopefully eradicate the use of tokens going forward in the future.
Super. Question 12, if there is a different pack size listed in DM&D, but the drug tariff only lists one pack size, which pack size will reimbursement be based on? E.g. NHS EPS prescription for ergo calciferol 300 units, quantity prescribed 10. In drug tariff, the reimbursement is based on a pack of 10. However, DM&D also lists a pack of 5. Could you get the pharmacy to endorse 5? Again, that's very wordy, so what I came up with was 2 images. What I can show you that is ergo calciferol, the generic version, is a 5-pack. All of the others are a 10-pack from other suppliers. So if it's unendorsed, you will be given from the generic 5-pack. To get it from one of the others, you would have to order it as the specific brand. Even just endorsing it one of the other brands, you will still get given from the 5-pack, which is the generic listing. Nearly there. Do EPS tokens go in the red separator? If anybody was clearly listening before, when we talked about the tag separator, I said only paper goes in there. You do not need to put your EPS tokens in. There you go. That's off our website. Do not include other items in the red separator. EPS tokens is one of them. Last question, FP34C issue, which is how to read the FP34 statement and how to chase up queries, payments, and missing claims. We do have a document on our website, which is called Understanding Your FP34 Statement. We don't currently host a webinar on it because other than really rereading what's on the document, we can't add anything to it. And often payments can be complex and you may need your finance people to actually look at it and understand it, which is why we don't want to open the can of worms, because if you already don't understand it, just talking it and rereading through something probably won't make it any clearer. If you have got any queries, you can call our call centre on 0300 330 1349 and ask to be put through to the payments team. They can go through any queries with you. And if you have a serious worry about a batch, there is an opportunity to have a full batch check. But again, I would only suggest that if you've got real serious concerns and some data to back it up, because we are normally 99.99%. So again, if in doubt, need to get in touch with the payments team, use the call center. And if you didn't get that one, I said it before, it is on our website. That is the 14 questions that were pre-submitted. Thank you to everybody if you were one of the people who submitted them. I haven't been able to look at the chat, so I have no idea if there is any more. Phil, have you been able to see it?
So the first one, I think we've answered the one about tokens. The next one is, do ETPs also need to be signed if an exemption is ticked? Would we be charged £9.90 on ETPs if not? I think I can do this one, Mark. So in the EPS message, there'll be the opportunity to tick an exemption category or tick that the patient paid for that prescription. One of them has to be checked, and that EPS message, that declaration is the legal entity. So there is no need then to send in a token either with the declaration on or a signature. Hopefully that clears that one up. The next one down is EPS special item like Zasin cream is not available. How to endorse special and invoice price.
Was that on EPS, was it?
EPS. My thoughts on that one, if Zasin is not part of Part 8C or Part 8D, a drug tablet special order, it won't be in DMD. If it is in DMD, it should be endorsed. If it's a non-DMD item, the prescriber will not be able to prescribe it on EPS. The non-DMD special item will need to be handwritten or passed back to the prescriber to write, and then you can endorse it appropriately. I'm right in saying that, Mark, aren't I?
Yeah, it's the ones which are dramatically different. Again, if you can't, I know it's counterproductive having to go back and getting it rewritten on a prescription, but they are the literally absolute anomalies.
Yes, they are.
If it's just a standard non-Part 8 product, again, I think I had an example of it before where you can put in the supplier price and pack in the dispensed information, additional information. It's like any other prescription, but for them specific ones. I mean, you've caught us on a particular drug without looking it up deliberately. We think it's the one where you would have to get it rewritten. If you've got any further details, you can submit that to the NP and they can pass that on to us if you're unsure.
Absolutely. Next one, Mark. I think you might be able to answer this one. For dental scripts, just lost my link.
Yeah.
The dental scripts are stamped Colgate Durafat. Dentist just handwrites ×3 on outside of the stamp. Do we still get paid for all 3 tubes supplied?
Yes, you do, and that's very relevant because my wife just got her Colgate Durafat prescription this week. Yeah, and again, they just stamp it on, and again, even if it was unendorsed and you have that patient with a regular quantity, if it was endorsed, we would follow your instruction of what you've given anyway.
I'm not sure about this one. What percentage of scripts are checked to see if patients are ticking honestly?
I don't think we disclose that. We disclose the full amount, but I don't know if you want to, if you know that.
I don't think we do. What I would say would be, I believe we recover £18 million a year
Yeah.
from fines and recoveries.
So a significant amount. But again, if we put a number out there of what we check, yeah, let's just stick with a positive number if it's a lot of money comes back.
Right, here's a good one. Do the backs of CD prescriptions need signing in the collected by bit? So the collected by bit is not a legal requirement, but it is good practice to do so, because then you'll have evidence to say the patient did collect that. So it's not a legal requirement, but it's good practice to put it on. Okay with that one?
I'm curious to see what Ashok's question is. We've had a prescription sent back to us requesting more information. We filled it in, but it keeps coming back. Tell me what it is.
Yeah, let us know, Ashok.
It'll be missing something. It's probably really simple. They read it. Hopefully they've put a note on it if they keep sending it back. I don't know if you want to type up what the item is, and I might be able to advise you. Top one will be supplier, price, and pack, I would have thought. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't type that in, send some info to the NPA who organised this event, and they can forward it on. And I can have because we've got a scanned image of your prescription, I can look that image up and have a look in MYS, and then I can give you an answer.
Great.
Biggest tip would be it's missing some information, which I'm guessing you know.
Right. As far as I can see, there are no more questions. We have got a bit more time. So if anybody wants to pop a question in the Q&A box, we're happy to stay and answer them. If not, we'll call it a day. But as I said before, we do undertake webinars bespoke with you guys. Get into our website, click on the link and get a date organized with Mark if you've got specific queries. And if there are any specific queries after this, if you can forward them to Helen on the NPA, we're more than happy to look at them individually and give you some feedback. I still can't see any more.
No, again, Phil, just if anybody is wanting to set up a private webinar with myself or a group one, just search NHS Prescription Services Open Days and it will take you to an email. Hopefully we can do some more events with the NPA again. It's been really good for them to invite us here. We get to speak to you guys en masse. Hopefully you get to see what goes on behind the scenes, and it puts a little bit of a face to the organisation as well. So we actually enjoy doing these events. So yeah, thanks very much for inviting us again.
There's just one question coming in from Anonymous 10D. What work are you doing to encourage doctors to go ETP? Interesting question. Mark and I have just attended the Dispensing Doctors Conference, and EPS was a major discussion point. There are a number of funding issues, political arrangements, regulation changes that will need to be implemented to allow doctors to go or move fully to an EPS system. Some of them have been overcome by individual dispensing practices, and they have now adopted EPS. And I think out of the population of dispensing doctors, of which is about 1,000, 7% now do have EPS functionality. But unfortunately, some of these political considerations, some of the contractual changes need to be agreed with the professionals themselves before it can move forward. But we bestow the value of EPS and the advantage it brings in terms of accuracy, in terms of processing, safety for the patient, and an unequivocal way of prescribing, because it can't be misread. But we try our best to get everybody convinced that EPS is the way forward. I think that looks like it might well be it. So appreciate everybody's time for joining us tonight. Hope that's been useful. And as Mark said, please contact us if you want a bespoke webinar or you want further questions answered by us.